down at the museum, I did see the 2 flight schedules, or it was actually several flight schedules that you had donated to the museum. We were talking about this before. To me, it's a weird set of emotions because I was looking at the flight schedule that has your name, Mongo, and Scott Speicher on there with your signature for the release, and that schedule. It looks like any other fighter squadron schedule. It looks like 1,000 schedules that
Right.
I've stared at over the years, and the weird. I don't even know how to actually encapsulate this in a sentence, but you can empathize and put yourself in that situation, and that's the only schedule that Scott Speicher showed up for on that
Yeah.
campaign. When you start doing, I draw parallels to Pyro. I mean, there's a schedule out there that was the last time Pyro was on a fly schedule that looked
Yeah.
exactly the same. So obviously it's a dangerous business, and for Scott Speicher, posthumously promoted to captain.
Yeah.
Correct.
The whole situation with Spike's status was, I thought it was horribly handled in retrospect. So he was declared killed in action, body not recovered in 1991. And in fact, the first big press conference that was held with the opening campaign or the opening strike of Desert Storm, Chairman Powell and SecDef Cheney are answering questions, and they said, let's see, the Hornet off Saratoga, the Hornet off Saratoga, he's dead. There was something to that effect of, well, he's gone, and those guys have got all of the resources of the Department of Defense at their disposal. I think that comment was made based on the debrief of the guys coming back saying the explosion looked unsurvivable. Well, what explosion at night looks survivable? I mean,
Right.
so he went down not far from, he was in Anbar. He was not that far from Fallujah. And so he's killed in action, body not recovered. What we should have done, and I later lived in a world as the deputy at CENTCOM, Schwarzkopf should, when we had our forces over there in strength, we should have said, we're going to account for every single person, to include Scott Speicher. We're going to find the jet, and we're going to account for him. But that didn't happen. And then later, there are now, so in the mid-90s, there was some Emirati prince that was falconing in Iraq, and he stumbles across the wreckage of a Hornet, and he takes the serial number off of a piece of the wreckage and takes it back to the American embassy. He goes, hey, took some pictures, I think. Hey, I found this. It's here. And so then it was like, well, maybe he got out. And can you imagine how bad it would be if, the Hornet pilot that was off of Saratoga is dead, but if he wasn't, Saddam doesn't have to account for him. And so,
Right.
Anyway, his status went from KIA, body not recovered, to MIA, and then there were some more intel indications that maybe he was alive. And then, so at the very end of the Clinton administration, his status was changed again to POW. And then it went back to MIA because even after we took over Iraq, they were looking for him, didn't find him. It was finally in 2009 where his remains were found. There was a team that went in under the Red Cross back in the mid-90s who they found a flight suit. They brought all the stuff. These guys were from China Lake, but they were under the Red Cross banner, if you will. They found the wreckage, the radar, the nose of the airplane had been excavated, presumably by the Russians or somebody, I don't know.
Yeah.
Still had some
Right.
harm motors. I mean, the airplane landed in some sort of a falling leaf or a slow rate spin or something. It was pretty much a contained impact point, but there was a flight suit. And if you had been lying on your face and somebody cut a flight suit off of you, is the way it sort of looked. I mean, it was intact in the front, but it was all tattered. And it looked like it'd been out in the desert for 4 years or something. I went home. I actually got my VFA 81 Sunliner memorabilia, and the Velcro configuration of the flight suit was accurate. It was the right size for Spike. So I think it was his flight suit, and then they found also that the canopy was a couple of kilometers away from the wreckage, which is also indication that he ejected. And so, anyway, so that's how he went from lieutenant commander to captain, because suddenly, okay, maybe he's not dead. And then when somebody's still missing in action, then you still continue to have promotions. And so it was hard. It just didn't. It's a sad tale, and somebody needs to write a really good book about it, because there are so many things that could have and should have been done. That should have been done and handled better.
Again, not there. I don't have understanding of all the workings, and you're managing a lot of variables, and obviously it's war and it's chaotic. I do, we probably have learned a few things over the years, and if the environment allows for it, you do what you can. I remember in Afghanistan, 2012, a Humvee column got hit, and they thought there had one missing American. I mean, it was all stop in the AOR, and every asset that was available flowed to that spot to go and find. Turns out that individual had perished in the wreckage, and they just didn't notice it. But again, it was everything came to a screeching halt to go try and recover that American. So yeah, I can't imagine. And then, as you mentioned, 2009, the repatriation. So again, just envision, that's almost 20 years of unknown for his family, which I can't imagine going through. So not an easy career to be involved in.
Well, it's I always felt a little guilty. His wife Joanne, our children, 2 of our children went to the little Episcopal day school where Spike's kids went, and so Priscilla, my wife, and Joanne were interacting with each other at Grace Episcopal Day School that Thursday after, as it turns out, and Priscilla said, "Oh no, they said it was a 2-seat. We know they're not flying 2-seat Hornets off of Saratoga." And Joanne goes, "No, it's a single-seat Hornet." But she hadn't been notified, and I mean, there was this great, Priscilla went through this. All of the wives of any Hornet pilot on Saratoga, it was like, okay, Saratoga's lost a Hornet and the pilot's dead. It was the way it came out in this press conference, and then so they set up this 1-800 number. My sister called it, and my father-in-law called it, and they both independently said, okay, my son-in-law is a Hornet pilot on Saratoga. What squadron? What squadron? VFA 81. What's his name? Fox. He said, it's not him. But so there was, just a lot of this was pre-social media, quick communications the way that we're used to it today. No internet or any of that stuff.
Yeah, it's a different problem set now. It's a race to get to notify the family before they find out in the news. And we were talking, again beforehand with Pyro. I remember him and Bear coming back to High Key over the base. And I was walking back from the bathroom. It was 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I was like, "Oh, someone's got a problem." I go to my room. I'm FaceTiming my wife. I hear the recall of the commander's action team, which they do on the PA system. You're like, well, in my mind, I'm like, someone probably just had a heart attack, and they're recalling all the critical people on base to handle this. And then internet shuts off. It was Nordo for about 3 days. Again, an effort to contain it as fast as humanly possible to be able to notify his spouse, which today just not the case.
It's a hard problem.
There's no easy solution, and you're dealing with death. So, we kind of diverted there. I appreciate you sharing that time period of your life. I know, that's one day, essentially a 24-hour window, more or less, that we just dove into, but very impactful. And even to this day, that's forever. I would imagine you'd probably say change your life, right? A significant impact.
anytime I talk about it, I'm willing to talk about it. I haven't had any, bad dreams or anything. Uh, I have a very strong Christian faith, and if that man was a Christian, he was doing his job, and I'm doing mine, and we'll see each other someday. I didn't. Um, I always felt, in fact, this was the answer I gave Amapur. It's like basically, if he didn't want to be in that position, he should have taken off. I mean, you accept a certain amount of risk. He was doing his job, and he would have gladly done it to me if he could have. So I've never had any trauma or PTSD or nightmares or any of that stuff. I mean, it's just been, hey, it's just business, man. We were working as hard as we could to do the mission, and they were doing everything they could to stop us. And
Well, and I know you mentioned it too. You've thought about putting Scott Speicher on the schedule, but not knowing him, I can imagine he's like any other fighter pilot. Like I would be pissed at you if you didn't
yeah,
put me on the schedule. Like that's where
yeah,
this is what I've trained to. This is what I've spent all my life doing training for. And it's now time to go to the Super Bowl and you're putting me on the sidelines. That's the last place I want to be. I want to be out there
I
on the
didn't,
field.
in the article that I wrote that I shared with you, I didn't go into all of the slam ER stuff. It was just too much complication. But that was the reason Spike hadn't been one of the go birds in any of the big four things that we were going, because he was kind of being held as he's got this special skill set. He's the SME on the slam ER. But anyway, and you're right. Mert, come on, man. I've trained all my life to do this. Don't leave me on the sideline.
Like,
It's like, you're
don't,
absolutely right.
yeah, don't you're icing the kicker there.
Yeah.
So I can completely empathize with that.